Good evening, everybody. I'm David Asman in for Trish. Our top story, the New York Post dubbing fired FBI Director James Comey the, quote, leaker of the free world, as President Trump lashes out, saying Comey got lucky by escaping prosecution after a blistering Inspector General's report found he had violated FBI policy and set, quote, a dangerous example for the agency's more than 35,000 employees by leaking memos detailing his private conversations with the president. Joining me now, former FBI Special Agent John Iannarelli and former U.S. Attorney Bud Cummins. Gentlemen, great to see you. Bud, first to you. You worked with Comey. When you hear the Inspector General call his actions dangerous, I'm wondering if you hearken back to any signs of that when you worked with him.
Well, and let me say good things about Jim Comey. Talented guy, nice fella. Obviously, now we know that he was in positions that he was not qualified to be in. You can see a progression if you look back in the history of Jim Comey, going back to 2004 when he had a conflict with the White House over a provision in the counterterrorism program. In a 2007 hearing, he engineers a way. It's not a hearing about that. It has nothing to do with that. But he engineers a way to tell that story in a long, dramatic way. And guess who's the hero in that story? Jim Comey. In that same hearing, he reads from an email that he got where he replied to another U.S. attorney, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. Well, he gave that email to the committee to ask him about it. Jim's been promoting himself as this paragon of virtue for his whole career, but it finally blew up in his face.
John, when you were at the FBI, did you hear any reports on Comey that would indicate to you at that time that he was dangerous?
I wouldn't use the word dangerous, but I certainly had the opportunity to work directly with Director Comey, and I've seen him in action. And I would agree with my colleague that the fact is that Director Comey seemed to be interested in Director Comey. The fact that he goes out on Twitter and says that he deserves an apology. Director Comey wants an apology. I'm sorry you were director of the FBI. It's not been good for anybody.
Yeah, well, and he's also essentially denying that he was a leaker when he admitted that he was a leaker, and that's the subject of the IG's report, is about how he leaked information that was not his own to leak. But for 2 years now, the media has been painting this guy as a hero. I'm wondering how they try to justify the IG report with their heroic presentation of him for more than 2 years.
It's easy. He was standing up to a president that they don't like. If you were... I may be aging myself here, but you remember the movie The Caine Mutiny with Humphrey Bogart?
I remember it well, yeah.
Okay. The lesson of leadership in that movie is not that Humphrey Bogart had some issues or that he was a bad captain. It was that the Fred McMurray character, loved Fred McMurray, but Lieutenant Tom Kiefer was arrogant enough to organize basically a mutiny instead of supporting their captain. And the moral was, and Jose Ferrer says it at the end of the movie, you don't support your captain because you like the way he cuts his hair. You support, or parts his hair, pardon me. You support the captain because he's got the job, and without him, you're no good.
Yeah, well, John,
that's where Jim Comey was.
And that leads to a question, John, that leads to a question whether this whole thing was an attempt to get Trump right from the very beginning. That is, Russia wasn't the subject as much as it was Donald Trump, keeping him out of the White House in the first place. Once he was elected, getting him out of the White House. That was the prime goal of this group in the FBI, whether you're talking from the top, Comey, or going down the line to McCabe and then Peter Strzok.
Well, it appears that way, and it obviously is a lack of leadership. The good news for the public is the agents in the FBI weren't brought into the FBI the way James Comey was. Agents go through a vetting process, and they want to serve their country. They forfeit high salaries to work for the FBI and protect the public. Jim Comey did a lot of damage. Fortunately, we still have the men and women of the FBI that do the right thing every day. He could have learned from them.
Speaking of McCabe, and I just want to put up a soundbite for you guys. The president mentioned Andrew McCabe today at his press conference before he went to Camp David. Let me just play that and get your reaction. Go ahead.
He's a bad guy, I can tell you that. He's a bad guy. I think he's a sick guy, personally, but I can't get into that with Andrew McCabe. But Andrew McCabe, he's a bad guy.
One thing that would make him a bad guy, Bud, is the fact that if he knew the information he had was bogus, with which he was trying to get Trump, that is, before finding any evidence against Trump, he manufactured it or had somebody else manufacture it, like Mr. Steele with the Trump dossier. Do you believe that McCabe and Strzok and possibly even Comey knew for a fact that the information they were using against Donald Trump was bogus?
I haven't personally seen evidence that they would intentionally did that, but what they did do was decide that they were superior to Donald Trump. They decided they didn't like Donald Trump. They decided they wanted to believe those allegations, and they went into an investigation wanting to believe the allegations. As John can tell you, that's not how an investigator goes into an investigation.
John, there has been a besmirching of the FBI from really the three top guys, Comey, McCabe, and Peter Strzok. How long is it going to take for the FBI to remove this stain?
It's going to take a while, and unfortunately it shouldn't, because those folks are gone and the men and women at the FBI are here. What Director Comey has done that seems that everyone's missing, the American people are not being well served by not having faith in the FBI.
Absolutely.
We need the public's help. Director Comey should be ashamed of what happened. He should be asking us for an apology, not the other way. We shouldn't be apologizing to him.
You know, again, it goes totally against most of the FBI people I have met believe in the core of their being that you need to just pursue with blind justice the evidence as it leads. You don't plant evidence that you know is phony. And frankly, they did exactly that with the FISA court, and it's a disgrace, hopefully a disgrace that can be removed by their removal. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. We appreciate it.